Hi Year 12, it's another online lesson today I'm afraid, but I will be in next week. So as I stated last lesson, I would like you to begin this lesson with your memory check of the key quotations. This is important because when it comes to the exam, you don't want to be wasting time looking through the text for these key quotations. You want to know as many as you can off by heart. So there's no need to look back through your books. This is a memory test. So I'd just like you to see what you can remember from now. It's very low stakes. There's no pressure here, but see what you can do. And then I'll go through the answers after. So give yourself 5 minutes, pause the video and copy and complete the quotations. Off you go. Okay, so quotation 1 is the dual life, that outward existence which conforms, the inward life which questions. They also talked about Edna loosening, so loosen the mantle of reserve. Mantle is the word there. Her marriage to Léonce Pontellier was purely an accident, in this respect resembling many other marriages which masquerade as the decrees of fate. And then finally, she was fond of her children in an uneven, impulsive way. So in this lesson, we are going to be aiming to answer 2 big questions. Firstly, how does Chopin explore marriages in The Awakening? We'll look at the marriage of the Pontelliers and the Ratignolles. And then finally, how does Chopin present Adele as a literary foil for Edna? Important knowledge that I would like you to be able to recall to access this lesson is that we already know that Louisiana was a Catholic state. Chopin herself defied expectations of marriage by having an affair with a married man. Léonce views his wife as a valuable piece of personal property, so he feels some sense of ownership over her. There's a sense of disconnect between Léonce and Edna, and Madame Ratignolle acts as a literary foil for Edna. Madame Ratignolle is the embodiment of social expectations, and she demonstrates to us how society would want Edna to behave so that we can see how far Edna's character starts to deviate away from those expectations. So all of this knowledge is going to be useful at some point in this lesson, and I'd like you to include as much of this knowledge as you can in your answers to the big questions. So firstly, our first big question was about presentations of marriages. Now, I've chosen 2 quotations, one about the marriage of the Ratignolles, and I've modelled a response, and then a second one about the marriage of the Pontelliers. Okay, so our quotation about the Ratignolles is, the right hand is jealous of the left, the heart jealous of the soul. Now, we've studied this in a previous lesson, but I've modelled here how to write up your thoughts on this quotation and how it presents marriage. So here's my answer. Chopin presents the idea that Madame Ratignolle and her husband are entirely dependent upon one another. The use of the nouns heart and soul suggests their inability to live without one another and confirms that their existence depends on one another. Chopin presents a typical patriarchal marriage of the 19th century. However, Chopin hints to the reader that this model is flawed when she describes marriages that masquerade as the decrees of fate. Her use of the verb masquerade conveys that a typical marriage would be one that pleases society, irrespective of true feelings. A feminist critic would infer that Madame Ratignolle's inability to live without her husband reflects the patriarchal standards of the time. So I've had a look at the quotation, I've zoomed in on words, I've linked it to another part of the text, and I've linked it to context. Your quotation that you're going to write about today in terms of presentations of marriages is this. Her marriage to Léonce Pontellier was purely an accident, in this respect resembling many other marriages which masquerade as the decrees of fate. What presentation of marriage does Chopin offer in this quotation? Frame your answer using the words social expectations, verb, and theme. That means I would like your answer to include those 3 words. I'd also like you to zoom in on the specific effect of the words accident, masquerade, and fate. So you should aim to write something that's a similar length to what I've written in my modelled example, but I would like you to Meet those expectations in blue, please, in your response to how marriage is presented in the quotation that I've given you. Off you go. Okay, further to this, our second big question was, how does Chopin present Adèle Ratignolle as a literary foil? Now, she looks at ideas about marriage, but she also looks at ideas about motherhood as well. So again, on the left-hand side of the screen, we have some quotations about Madame Ratignolle and motherhood. We've got, esteemed it a holy privilege to efface themselves as individuals and grow wings as ministering angels. So that's about Madame Ratignolle embodying that notion of the mother woman and being really overprotective of her children at all times. Conversely, we have a quotation about Edna's attitudes towards motherhood. She was fond of her children in an uneven, impulsive way. What I would like you to do is write out those two quotations, and I'd like you to complete a similar analysis as you did before. Feel free to pause the video and go back and look at the modelled example about Madame Ratignolle and marriage and copy that structure for your answer. I've also put on some things that will help you onto the screen. For example, I'd like you to look at the religious lexis that links to Catholicism. The idealistic duty sets the code for how she should behave. The metaphor of the angel with connotations of protection and innocence. Efface, which is a verb, which means that she sacrificed her own identity. And then complete a similar analysis of the quotation about Edna. Okay, so sorry about all the noises in the back of the video. That's my children who are at home isolating, being very noisy in the background. So finally, to prepare for next week's lessons, I would like you to have read chapters 10 to 15, and there's some questions that I'd like you to answer as you go, so it might be a good idea to pause after each chapter so it's fresh in your memory, and write down your answers to each question, ready to discuss when we return to face-to-face lessons next week. Okay, thank you very much, and remember to submit your work on Show My Homework or drop me an email if that's not possible.